We've talked about bio CO2 or biogenic CO2 increasingly at gasworld in the last couple of years. You mentioned some of the easy solutions as you described them a moment ago. I'd just like to ask, what's holding us back? What's the biggest factor that's holding back the development of these new sources? Is it the lead time, as you alluded to? Is it the investment? Is it the support? Or is it a combination?
Yeah, traditionally these, and I've talked about this a little bit in some of the past discussions we've had. Traditionally, these sources have been super capital intensive relative to the volume that they're producing. So you really have a capital penalty on these sources, and with the traditional price levels we've seen in the CO2 market, that has made it very, very difficult to find find an economic solution, for development of these sources. Now that we're seeing shortages, we do see the market pricing levels increasing significantly, and that's freeing up some room that allows us now to develop these sources under economic models. Again, where we're not these are 10, 15, 20-year projects. We're not talking about 2 or 3 years. So you really need to look at what happens over the long term and when you're investing this type of capital into it. So you can't just base your economics on the spot price of today. You need to look at what happens as we go through these cycles, and we go through cycles of kind of relative calm and then relative chaos. And during the calm periods, as they sometimes when they're over longer periods, the market tends to go back to more competitive pricing levels that are closer to what we've historically seen. So the main thing that's holding these back is market pricing, and that seems to be loosening up and allowing a little bit more room to develop these sources. But that capital burden remains difficult. The second thing that's been holding back a little bit is something we touched on earlier, and that's the quality aspect. So these are new sources. They're not quite understood like we understand ammonia, bioethanol production, sources, or refinery sources. So there's a lot of people that are, especially for instance, the big bottlers with a lot of brand equity, they're stepping to the side and saying, we want to see a lot of data. We want to see years of production history before we venture in there and accept these sources as, kind of as part of our base load. And so that's taking time. We're getting there. We're starting to develop, we're starting to develop a lot of history here and data here. And as I mentioned, we need to do that in a more transparent way on the quality side of things, so that we can show the industry what's going on and what we're doing about it and how we're operating our sites. We sometimes consider that as confidential data. It's proprietary. We invest in that and we build that into our system. So sometimes painful to open that up to the industry and teach your competition how to do it, but that's actually becoming necessary now, as we need these sources to keep our industry thriving and keep our industry alive, in essence, to keep our customer base in order. But I'd say those are the two aspects that have been hardest to overcome up until now. And as I said, we get some more room there. And then the third one is what I mentioned. We have a little bit of a gold rush going on, which is causing some issues right now with really nailing down long-term partnerships and projects and development projects to get these things moving in the marketplace. And so we need to get over that one before we're kind of really, sailing free and really see a lot of these sources coming online.